We're back with another episode of Survivor Worldwide on Reality Pop, and I am here with the latest evicted castaway from Survivor South Africa Immunity Island, Wardah. Wardah, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very good, thank you. It's been a very interesting week over here in New Zealand, which is where I'm back at the moment. We've just gone into a level 4 lockdown for the next 2 weeks. So obviously living in that new normal where you sometimes have to work from home and things like that. So definitely the pandemic might screw up a lot of the plans for the rugby championship and all of that, especially with South Africa still needing to travel to New Zealand. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. But the one thing that's been consistent in this time of lockdowns has been Survivor South Africa delivering week in and week out with very, very good episodes. And I'm very interested to talk to you about your experience on Immunity Island when you were out there. And I guess one of the things I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that coming into this game, you had a lot of life experience coming into this. You've had over 20 years in journalism and obviously working in a yoga profession and a fitness instructor profession. You have to work with a lot of different people and get the best out of them. How do you feel, now that you've played the game, those experiences of having, done that for so many years, how did that translate for you into the game of Survivor when you were playing it? And what did translate and what didn't translate the way that you thought it would?
I think everything translated pretty well, actually. I think a little bit maybe too well, because I think I maybe should have concealed my strength as a social player a little bit more, because there was a few points in the game where it was noted that, she played really well. Renier saying, I like her so much. Yeah, Wardah has to go. I like her so much. It worries me. And Marisha saying, she's already close to the girls. And, and Santoni saying in this last episode, she's close to Nicole. That's dangerous. Game was my superpower. That's where I shone. I deliberately held back a little bit in challenges where our group from the middle. I didn't want to make myself see liability. So sort of like Santoni kind of weaker, had to be the Marisha. So it was great that with somebody like Marisha was around, because there was so much focus on her being the strong girl. Mine was never come into question. Yes, it worried me that I was always chosen to compete against her. So on some level, people saw me as the stronger girl after her. But I deliberately tried to play that down a lot. And that's why I didn't tell anyone I was a personal trainer. And actually quite capable, but also a part of a brain. I would have been a lot, I would have looked a lot fitter, and it would to hide in because I was carrying a little bit more weight because I'd been cooking and baking a lot during that lockdown period. I wasn't really working; the gyms were closed, so I was hide my physical appearance hid a lot of that as well and helped me. And I think my life experience worked very well to my in the game.
Yep. For some other reason, Wardah, it's breaking up quite a lot. I don't know if it's the same on your side. Maybe if you turn your video off, maybe it will be a little bit clearer, and we'll try it that way. If you turn your video off on your side, I don't know if you know how to do that. We'll see if that's a little bit better. Okay, we'll try that. So yeah, it does sound clearer at the moment. So yeah, it sounds a lot better so far. So let's try that and see how that goes. You mentioned there that you carried a little bit more weight coming into the game, and that, with the lockdown and things like that, it sort of potentially made you a little bit of an undercover threat when it came to the challenges, and people probably underestimated you a little bit coming into this. I'll put my hand up and say myself and Riley were two of those people. If you saw our cast assessment, we had you pretty low on that, and we've been very impressed with how you've played the game up until this point, because to get into 7th place is no bad feat on its own. And I'm really interested to know the relationship between yourself and Anesu there in the early parts of the game. She was someone that you formed a strong relationship and an alliance with, and you guys got split up, and it looked like you never really got to that same level when you met at a later stage. Can you talk a little bit about that working relationship with Anesu and why you could never really find that common ground after the merge?
I think, okay, just to address the first part as well. I think when a lot of people and a lot of you guys, the fans and the podcasters, underestimated people like me, is that I think people tend to feed into stereotypes. If you look strong, you are strong. If you look like this, you pigeonhole people. And I think that's the first mistake all of you make, is you pigeonhole people. And that's probably like the worst cast you could have done that with, because this was LaRue and the team did such an excellent job at casting this season. No one is who they they seem to be, or how you pictured them to be. Every single person in this cast is so complex, so deep. There's so much to them, so many layers to archetypes. And this person looks strong, so they must be like, this looks like this, This defies all the predictability that has been before us. So just to address that. Then secondly,
can I jump in
just before Anesu?
Can I jump in just before you go into Anesu, and I'll bring that back up for you as well with the Anesu one. Definitely, I don't want to forget about that. And I just want to address it and say that from my end, I fully 100% agree with you. And I think half of the fun sometimes, and I take responsibility for underestimating you in the beginning, and I hope you didn't take an offense to that. When we do these cast assessments,
no, not at all.
We try and make it as fair as possible, and we quite rightfully say that we've got very little information about these people when we do our cast assessments. But there's a lot of fun in underestimating people and then being proven wrong. Tyson being another person who came out swinging this season, and I've been so impressed with him as well. So I hope that no one took offense to the way that we did the cast assessments. And for us, it's fun, and I get it. Like, we get a very limited period that we see you guys even on the show, and I think that's something for other fans to really think about when they judge people for an edited show. I think they really should look hard at themselves and realize they only see 40 minutes and very small snippets of what people did in a period of 3 days for all of these episodes. So just wanted to put that out there as well.
No, definitely not. I mean, no one took offense at it. I think for me, I just always found it comical that people were always like, Santoni and Wardah, they're going to be early boots. They're not going to last. And we were just kind of like, I know Santoni was probably giggling to herself, and so was I, because they're like, this person's going to be in the game till the end. And we're like, no, actually, they're going before merge, so that was really funny. It was funny for us. But going back to your previous question about Anesu, for me, I try to play a game where integrity was quite a big thing to me. And if I made a promise to you, I tried my very best to keep it. So when we came back together, for me, nothing had changed. But I think a lot had happened. Remember, Anesu was sitting on the other side in the Vuna 2.0 with the rest of my alliance, my core alliance, which was Kieran and Tyson. So I don't know what erosion happened on that side. And of what I was told, she was kind of like playing. They could already see that she wasn't really loyal to them. And I think the first sort of mark against the name was when we had that rice, where we had to balance the rice in our head, and we had that double elimination. And she chose to go and compete to go to Immunity Island, as opposed to stick with the boys and try to, be a united front and back them. And she chose to save herself. And for them, they kind of like were wary of her. So when I reconnected with her, they had already filled me in and into like, listen, it's not as it was before. Just be careful. But we were working with her. And I think for me, I was just cautious. I was just cautious around her because I knew what I knew. But at the same time, I also had my own interactions with her. And in real life as well, if somebody's going to gossip to me about you, Chris, I'm not going to believe it at face value. I'm going to first have to have that same interaction with you or negative interaction before I believe that person, or agree with them. So for me, it was the same in the game. They were concerned about her. I was wary. I sort of was cautious around her. But at the same time, I wanted her to give me reason not to trust her. And I think she kind of distanced herself in a sense. And there was little things that came out that made me ultimately decide to stick with the boys and vote her out. But nonetheless, I did feel bad about it, as it showed in this episode at the beginning when we were around the fire, just after coming from her tribal council, where I said I felt bad writing her name down, because that was the first time I had to write someone's name down from my alliance.
Yep. So really interested to get a bit of a better understanding. You ended up with the boys there in a very strong 3-person alliance, and it took 4 people having immunity to get you out of the game, which is quite a feat in its own, and you should be proud of the fact that you didn't go quietly. It took a lot to get you out of the game. One of the things I was sort of interested in is, did you plan on going to the end with Tyson and Kiran? And if you did go to the end with both of those guys, if it was your plan to go to the end with them, what would have been your pitch to the jury in regards to how your game was different to those boys getting to the end, and why they should give the money to you instead of them?
You know what? The 3 of us had made a pact from the beginning that we wanted to go to the end together, and we were so tight that we actually didn't care really of who of us won the money. For me, I wasn't doing this for the money. I was doing this for the experience and to see how far I got. However, having said that, if I looked at it purely from a competitive side of things, I did mention to Tyson 2 or 3 times, but I was very scared to push harder because I knew what they had just done or they were about to do and then had subsequently just done to Anesu. I was very careful with my words. So I just said to Tyson, I think it was 2 or 3 times, I said to him, you do realize if we do in fact go to the end with Kiran will win because he's more well liked by the Zamba people. And there were obviously a lot more Zamba people on the jury. I mean, if you look at the jury, I'm the first, no, I'm not the first. I'm the second Vuna person only on that jury. So Kiran was the one who was the most liked out of the 3 of us by everyone. So already we would be on the back foot there if it was a popularity contest. And I mentioned it to Tyson 2 or 3 times, and he realized it. But I think it just never became a thing for us. We just kind of focused on what we had to do at hand. But had I got to that final tribal council, I would have said that I was the voice in both their ears this entire time. And the way it happened, and it's not super obvious in what you see on air, and there's a reason for that because I didn't make it super obvious. So I was kind of like the muse. So I would whisper things in their ear. And I mean, you're not married for 14 years like me and not know how to make a man think something is his idea when it's actually yours. I'm a master at it. A man might be the head of the house, but the woman is the neck, and we can turn the head any way we want to. And that was kind of my strategy when I dealt with the boys. And I would whisper things in their ear, and I would say, while cooking Tyson cooked with me. He was my sous chef, and I would say to him, look, if we get to merge, who are you going to target first? And I remember saying, the girls are very tight. And he was like, yeah, but who of the girls? And they were like, oh, but so this one's not really strategic. And I said, Marisha seems like the person who is the glue amongst those girls. If you take the glue away, they're going to be unsettled, and then that will kind of unsettle them. And that's all I said. Then Kieran goes off and he goes and sees if things are plausible because he speaks to people. Tyson and I were not really super, liked by everyone because I was outspoken. But at the same time, I was a little bit more social than Tyson. I was Tyson's social buffer and his go between him and Santoni, because him and Santoni would never saw eye to eye. And I was kind of their social buffer. And that's how I played. And had I sat at that final tribal council, I would have unpacked all of that one by one of how my hand was always involved in every move, except, and I wouldn't take credit for this, is the Anesu one. And I mean, it shows on that episode where Kieran says to me, we're going for Anesu. And I go, oh, we're going for Anesu. That was the first one that I had no key pivotal role in, where I was literally just siding with my alliance. They put out all the cards on the table as to why, because I asked them, why are we doing this? Is it the right move? Is it smart? And Kieran, being the methodical, strategic guy that he is, listed everything very clearly for me. And I was like, cool, makes sense. And we did it.
Now, someone that you had a bit of a love-hate relationship with at certain parts in the game was Santoni. You played with her probably the longest of any of the cast members in the game, because she was in all of your tribes and also in the merge. How difficult was that relationship for you guys to manage throughout the game, and specifically going into the merge? One of the real masterstrokes for your alliance was being able to pull Chappies and Santoni in to actually further your own game at that stage. How difficult was that to do, and how much of a hand did you have to play in that? Specifically, the fact that you put things aside and you helped her in that challenge where she really struggled and she had a real big fear of the water because she nearly drowned previously, which was great to see the human side is different to the gameplay side, even if you disagree with people in the game. How difficult was that relationship to manage? And if you can speak towards how you guys were able to bring her in and both Chappies in at the merge, that would be great.
It was quite a task to manage Santoni. I said it from episode 1. She's got a very volatile personality. She's got a volatile style of playing the game where she's very fluid, and I admire actually a game, and I wish I was maybe a little bit more fluid. Now watching it on TV, I was like, shit, she was really cool. Like how she, moved with people, but at the same time, I now see the downfall in playing a game like that. You end up becoming, over the days, I mean, remember now we're on day 30 out of 39 days. You become so paranoid because at some point you backstabbed everybody that's basically there. You don't really know who you can and cannot trust anymore. Because now you're like, is this person still holding a grudge? Maybe this person's waiting to get back at me. Maybe this is the moment they're going to come back at me now. Because she kept asking me, are you still angry about Carla? Are you really over the Carla vote? Are you? So I said, yes, I am. And I really was. I was over it. Like I really had moved on. And it was hard work to work with somebody who, by the drop of a hat, could change their mind and have it out for you in an instant. And me having an internal moment about me having to write Anesu's name down, she made it about her, and she was like, oh, but you shutting me out and I'm in this alliance. And I was like, no, actually, this has got nothing to do with the alliance. This has got nothing to do with Kieran and Tyson. This is Wardah dealing with the fact that she has now had to do the thing that she's been holding back on doing and trying to avoid as far as possible, which is to write someone's name down, which I promised never to write their name down. And that was me dealing with that. And that night, she just took it on herself and made it about her. And the next day, I was a bitch and I was horrible and I should not be in this camp. And, if it wasn't for that, they would have gone for Tyson, because Chappies wanted to get Tyson because Tyson was a physical threat and he was a strategic threat and he was a strong member of our trio, but he was more of a threat to Chappies in the physical challenges. And Chappies knew he's going to have to win every single challenge to stay around. So he wanted to get his biggest threat out. But because she was so emotional about it, she told him, no, it's got to be Wardah. It's got to be Wardah. So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot to deal with every single day.
No, 100%. And as someone that obviously, you're someone that had some pretty strong takes on certain people around you as well that you didn't get along with. And at times, when we were doing our recaps, I actually put it out and said, how will Wardah react? Will she will she not refuse to work with people due to the fact that she doesn't like them? But to your credit, like I said, you pulled people in like Chappies and Wardah, Chappies and the Santoni that you didn't necessarily like pre-merge, and you ended up working with them, which showed that you didn't play the game with emotions. And similar to how you took Anela on for not wanting to work with you, and you said that you need to be fluid in the game. What was your take on Anela, and how did your relationship with him evolve after the merge? And were you aware that Anela was sort of taking your place as that third person potentially with the boys, and that they had a contingency plan if they were to lose you?
I was aware of it. He was always plan B, and I was always the carrot dangle for him. It was a way to get Anela on side, because we were also very aware that he was one who went wherever he could be saved. I mean, that was the backbone of his game, being saved all the time by other people. So in order for him to feel, he would go wherever he felt the safest. So, and he was also a very emotional player in that he held grudges. So he did not want to let go of the fact that I wrote his name down pre-merge like 100 years ago in Zamba. And Kieran knew this. So Kieran dangled it in front of him and said, look, if you vote with us, then we'll get rid of Wardah. But had everyone not been that emotional at that last tribal council, my one, it actually would have gone better for everyone, really. Because Chappies could have still saved Santoni. He could have sent her away. He was safe. Nicole was safe. And then the three of us, our plan B was if Chappies was going to do that, we were just going to turn around and vote for Anela. And it would have been an easy vote. And then we also would have destabilized the remaining Zamba 2 and had Nicole be on her own. And I was already close to Nicole. I'd already established a good relationship with her. So it would have been easy for me on a social level then to bring her into our alliance and then just target Chappies and Santoni. But everyone was just so emotional. And I mean, I can't blame anyone for it. We're hungry, we're delirious, we're tired, we're paranoid for 30 days. It's going to get to you. People are going to be crazy. So the Anela thing was never a thing, really. It was all gameplay. And yeah, I just felt like my relationship with him was kind of like we tolerated each other and it was a means to an end. But yeah, it was really just us trying to make him also feel comfortable and included because we needed him.
Now, one of the things that was sort of a bit of a big storyline within Zamba 2.0 was the comments that you made a few times in regards to misogyny in the game. And I was sort of wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on that and sort of what you were experiencing out there on the island. And specifically, what was the misogyny like in those early stages when you were in team challenges versus later in the game when you went into the individual portion of the game? Did it still exist? And also, if you could talk through, being out there on the island, obviously certain people have certain roles, like you became the cook. That you see that misogyny roles where, yourself or other females were more at camp doing the taking care of the guys, making the food, and some of the guys going out becoming more hunter-gatherer type of providers to the tribe? Or, where did that sort of come into play? I'd love to hear your take on that.
It was very obvious in all the episodes. I mean, I think the way the episodes were edited, it was highlighted. They showed it beautifully. The first time being when I was still with Carla in the first Zamba, Zamba 2.0, where at that challenge where we had to stack the blocks, the men just didn't listen to the women. We were telling them they're using the wrong color, and they were so busy doing their own thing, and the silly little women were just making little comments. We lost that challenge, and it wasn't a hard challenge. It was simple. We could have won that. And it was all because of this male bravado that that didn't happen. Then second to that was Chappie's comment in Merge, where he said, there are, I think it was in Merge or Zamba 3.0. No, it was Merge because Sean was there and everyone, yeah. Where he said, the strong players in this tribe, and he mentions only the men. And I was just like, wait, you're mentioning all the men. Is Marisha not strong? Like, Marisha's stronger than most of the men, yeah. Like, she could probably, squat most of them easy. And he didn't even think to mention her simply because of her gender, she is automatically discounted as the strongest player when she was way stronger than Sean, who was mentioned in Chappie's list of strong players, way stronger than Anela. And I mean, after that one challenge where I competed against her, we had to push that bar, the fresh start challenge. Chappie admitted to me, he said, she's just as strong as I am. Like, I would have a hard time competing against her. Yet, when he mentions the strongest players, he doesn't mention a name because he's so preconditioned to discount women as weak. It was a big thing and it needed to be addressed. And I think on shows like this, where South Africans are sitting there with their entire families, it's important we have these conversations and we make ourselves cognizant of it, and we start checking ourselves. You gotta check yourself also. Like, why, if you didn't notice the misogyny, you as Chris need to ask yourself, why didn't I notice the misogyny? Have I got those preconditioned ideas about women that I don't even see it? I don't even see what was wrong in what Chappie said, where somebody who's cognizant of it would have gone red flag. Why is he not mentioning Marisha? Why are the men not listening to the women? Whereas there were people that were just not misogynist, like Sean, who noticed.
Yeah, and listen, definitely when we did the recap of those episodes, we sort of addressed that as well. And both myself and Riley, we definitely saw what happened in that challenge. I was just more curious to know if it went further than just what we saw on the TV, or if it was edited in a way where we did see most of it. And I think you've sort of answered that pretty well in giving us a good idea as to what was going on out there. And one of the things that for me is very interesting is that Survivor South Africa, obviously we've still got one female left in the game. In the early stages, myself and Riley believed very strongly that it was a female that was going to win this season. Oh, sorry, two that's still. Sorry, you're right. Yes, so because of that, it's one of those ones where you're right, two females left in the game which could still win it. And for us, we early on said the females were playing the strongest strategic game for us early in the game, but they all ended up sort of falling very much in quick succession at the merge, and obviously it was a bit of a twist that didn't help with that. And with the tied destinies coming into play. But it's interesting because we haven't seen a female win Survivor South Africa in a very, very long time. So I think it's clear to see that in the game of Survivor, sometimes there's certain things that it's not an advantage to females when they find idols. It's harder to hide it, things like that when you're out in the field and things like that, compared to guys in a lot of the seasons in the US and South Africa and things like that. So definitely something that I do notice. I'm very interested, Wardah, you had quite a few people. Sorry, did you want to say something to that?
I just wanted to add to that also, the challenges also is not, I realize also they're not really, and I suppose this is not maybe a gender thing, it's just a short people thing. It's not really geared towards short people.
You were at a very big disadvantage against Marisha and the pushing of the pole, and I mentioned it on the recap. Your head was next to where the pole was and she had it right by her chest, so it was a very big disadvantage if you just look at physics in
big
general.
Disadvantage. And then also I posted this picture of the memory challenge where we had to drop the color blocks down, and I'm standing next to it's a picture I posted with me standing next to Santoni, and Santoni's quite taller than me, and she's just standing and she's putting the blocks in, and I'm like on my very tippy toes and I just about reached the top. So that's also a big thing that comes into play, is sometimes, more often than not, the challenges are not adjusted for height or anything like that. It's, you compete with what you have and do the best you can.
No, 100%. Now, Wardah, this is a question I normally ask towards the end of the interview, but I'm going to bring it in now because it's going to be sort of and sort of relevance to another question I want to ask you, I'm assuming a lot of people who go out there and play this game, they would play it in a heartbeat again. I'm assuming you would play it again. But even if you didn't want to play it again, let's assume you did want to go out there and play the game. You had quite a lot of rivals this season, or like Santoni likes to call them nemesis, different nemesis while you were out there. You had some strong words between yourself and Paul and Anela, Santoni, and Chappies while you were out there. You know, if there was ever to be a Survivor South Africa rivals season, who would be your ultimate rival that you would like to see on the other side come back and play the game with you again out of those guys?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think probably Santoni, because I mean we have a love-hate relationship, and it's the one that, and I think Chappies as well, because I think there was a lot of broken telephone and misconceptions, and I think maybe if we had communicated better, there was a lot of assumptions made on both our sides. And I think if Chappies and I spoke more, we could potentially work together, because I think it would be unlikely. And with Santoni, I understand her better as a person now, also watching it back and realizing what her triggers are and how I could have been a little bit more sensitive or been more cognizant of where she was at. Those are players that I would love to play again with.
So and would you come back and play the game again? I guess to put that out there as well.
Yes, I would come back and play the game again. I think if you had asked me in the game, I would have said no, especially on day 14 when I missed out on those pecan pies and coffee, and it was raining, and Santoni nearly drowned, and Chapman and Anela nearly drowned. I would have said no. But I think now, definitely, I've learned a lot. I've realized maybe what I could have done better, and it would be cool to put that to the challenge, to put that to the test again.
So on that note, one of my questions that I wanted to ask you is, where do you think you did go wrong in the game? If you've had the opportunity now to look at it and sort of not be in the fishbowl itself and look at everybody as they were playing the game, what do you think you could have done differently to avoid being eliminated in the spot that you were eliminated in?
That's like a two-part question. I think in general, I don't think I could have done things much differently because I was playing with my authentic self. I can't not be me. And I mean, in that environment, you have no choice but to be yourself, whether you want to or not. It's going to come out. So I think that I can't really change much. What I would specifically want to, if I had a time machine and go back, the moment where I cost myself this point in the game, it's actually on camera, and I actually pointed it out to my husband. I paused and I said, that was the moment that Klosh came out, and I had this urge, this voice inside of me saying, put 400 Nikos on this, because I had money. I was rolling in the money. I was like, put 400 Nikos on this. And then this fear came over me and said, no, don't do it. And then I turned to Nicole and I said, you bid on this. And that was the Immunity Island pass. And had I gotten that, I would have avoided all of this shiz. I would have been able to say whatever I wanted to at tribal council, but I would have been untouchable. But unfortunately, I think the lesson I learned is, and my husband told me this, go with your gut. Even if you're scared, just go with your gut. If your gut tells you to do something, do it.
100%. And we find out that Chappies, he gets the tribal council pass from Anesu in the previous episode, and obviously you guys find that in his bag when you go through the bags. How surprised were you that he got that from Anesu, and were you aware of that in the game, or was this something that you found out later on when you went to Jury Villa, or when you went back to watch the game again?
No, we knew when we found it, we knew about it, but we didn't. For me, it was news to me that they were that close. I was like, whoa, they were that close. And it actually made me feel a lot better about the Anesu vote, because I was like, well, clearly I did the right thing. I can let go of the guilt now, because she actually was never playing with me. She was never playing with us. So it's all good, It actually was a kind of like a cathartic thing when Anela found it. I was like, oh, okay, the boys were right. I don't need to feel bad. She was gonna gun for us anyway. It was a good decision.
100%. Now, you also obviously at this point find out that Chappies took some of that sweets from the auction, and that becomes a big part of the episode going into Tribal Council, where everybody is really heated and talking about, cheating in the game and taking food and things like that. And then it comes up that obviously you guys also took some food away from the Briar reward. I heard that the argument was that he was only benefiting himself and not benefiting other people on there. Now looking back at it
Yeah.
and sort of seeing it on TV, do you feel like it was a pretty fair representation of what happened there? And do you want to elaborate a little bit more in regards to sort of your feelings around that? And do you feel like at the end of the day, justice was prevailed in that sense, or do you still feel like something more should have been done about the fact that he took that food from the auction?
Look, first prize was, I suppose I regret, although our intentions were good, well-intentioned to take food from the braai, but maybe if we hadn't, we would have come from a clean slate, and then Nico could have taken more serious action, because what we were pushing, we were hoping that he would maybe be stripped of his, like an Olympic athlete. If you find him doping, you get stripped of your title. So we were like, okay, well, if we can cause enough, bring enough attention to this, and maybe Nico's going to side with us, he will strip him of his immunity necklace, and then he'll become fair game, and then we'll be able to either get him out, or he will go home with his tribal council pass. Then that gets that out of the way. Santoni will play her necklace, and Anela was always going to be our plan B. We would all just pile our votes onto Anela.
Yep. No, 100%. That makes sense. And, you went into that tribal council with what you thought was rice in your bag. And at some point, you obviously discovered that Chappies not so subtly moved it out and put some sand in there instead. Were you ever planning on walking out with the rice if you were voted out, or was that always a ploy to try and see if they would not vote you out of the game?
That was my last ditch attempt that was like a plan C or D to save myself. In my mentality, and like Tyson said, it was all an eye blind. He had most of the rice anyway, because I kind of knew it was either me or whoever else. It was either me or Santoni, or if that didn't work out, Anela. So it was the three of us that were up on the chopping block. So I just thought, okay, as a last-ditch effort to protect myself, I'm going to make them think I have all the rice, because no one knew. Only me and Tyson knew that Tyson had the rice. I didn't even tell Kieran. I think so. I don't even think Kieran knew that Tyson had all the rice. He had like 90% of the rice. Because you see the bag that Chappies takes out, it's very soft. It's like very little. It had like about a cup or 2 cups of rice in it. And I was never going to leave with it, because, my character throughout the entire season has been one of caregiver and taking care of people. And somebody who chooses rice over food for themselves at a reward challenge is not the kind of person who is going to then turn around and walk out with rice.
No, 100%. So I'm interested to know, overall, seeing the show. Sorry, I just lost you there for a second. Apologies if I spoke over you.
Oh, no. I was just saying that it's not within my character to ever have walked out of the rice or been that spiteful and inconsiderate to do anything like that. It was literally just a way of a last-ditch effort to protect myself. So if they thought, Wardah's sitting with all the rice, shit, if she leaves. And that's why I said it so obviously in camp. Like, I'm leaving with the rice. It's like, who's going to do that for real? Like, say that out in public. If I know they would address it in tribal council. So I said it deliberately for Santoni to hear, so that they would panic, so that she would then, and fell for it. I remember her walking away. As I said it, she quickly got up and she walked off, and I knew she was going to Chappies. And she was going to tell him, like, oh, she's going to give the rice away. She's going to walk away with the rice. So I thought that was my last-ditch effort to force their hand into choosing someone else. And I suppose that was me being kind of, in a way, turning on my alliance, because I was like, well, if they're going to choose somebody else, maybe it won't be me, because they're going to be too scared to have me leave with the rice. You
Yes.
know?
No, 100%. It makes sense. I mean, you had to do something at the end there. You fought to
Yeah.
be there 30 days. You couldn't go out without a fight, and I fully appreciate it. I think that the game makes you do pretty crazy things, like Chappie's going out there and making rice on his own, for instance, and trying to sort of fend for himself. I'm sure in his everyday life he's not going to do something like that, but out there in the game he's trying to get to the end by any means necessary.
Yeah, and I think that's also the other thing. People were like, oh, Tyson and Wardah are such hypocrites. No, there's a differentiating factor. Whereas taking the sausages from that um, challenge, or from that win, was us feeling bad for the others, saying, shame, they also tried, they're also really hungry. I mean, Kieran and Anesu is there. They lost lots of weight. We knew how hungry and depleted they felt. So we felt bad for them. We were like, let's take something back. There's so much left over here. We are stuffed. What if we just took one for everyone? That night at the tribe was the happiest, most harmonious we were ever. Like, everyone got along with everyone. Everyone was in great spirits. We were all like in such a good mood, because people felt united by a booty. You know what I mean?
100%.
So, and that's why there's that differentiating factor where we're going, hold on. Yes, we took there. Yes, it was wrong. We broke the rules. Fair enough. But intention is everything. That was out of kindness, out of wanting to share, and empathy. What Chappies did was out of selfishness, out of competitiveness, and inconsiderateness. You know what I mean? Is that a word? Inconsiderateness.
It is now, but 100%. I kind of got where you guys were coming from, and I felt like, like you said, the only technicality here probably was that there were rules broken by both parties, which kind of nullified the decision from Nico's end. But I fully appreciate the intent being a big part of it, and the fact that you guys were thinking of the tribe as a whole, opposed to one individual benefiting from it. So fully appreciate that. I did want to ask you, what was your favorite moment out there? It could be something that you either saw on the show and it made the edit, or it could be something that we didn't see on the show.
I was hoping this one scene would make the edit. It was me and Anesu one night. It was hilarious. There was this massive toad that came into the camp, into the Vuna camp. I think it was still Vuna. And the two of us were sitting up late one night, and this toad just came to sit, and it stared at us. And we were in fit of giggles. Everyone was sleeping. And I said to Anesu, you kiss it, I'm married, maybe it's a prince, kiss it. She was like, I'm in a committed relationship, I'm not kissing it. I'm like, that's why it's staring at us and wants us to do something. And we kept like throwing, like we were sitting in the shelter, we were like throwing things at it to try and get it to move, but we were also scared that if it jumped, it would jump at us, because it literally just sat there and stared at us. And yeah, it's unfortunate that didn't make one of the interesting little scenes, because I think, the night cam guys were there, and everything was captured, but it didn't make it. And I think that was one of the funniest nights ever, where we were literally in stitches the entire time. But I mean, as you can see, this season is so jam-packed with so many different things. I do not want to be the editor of Survivor South Africa Immunity Island, because the job that you have to do to cut through all the stuff that happened.
They could make a whole second season of it.
Yeah.
Show us other things that we didn't see.
Of what you guys saw, for me, was the most fun was the first challenge, the first reward that I won, because that was a novelty for me, like winning the pizza challenge. And I was like having my little jig there, and Nico was laughing at me, and I was like, it's my first challenge, I won. And they caught that on camera, and that was really cool for me, because I was like, yay, pizza. So that pizza party was cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And talking about the wildlife and seeing the frog there in the middle of the night, obviously the area that you guys played in, being out on the wild coast, it's notorious for quite poisonous creatures like snakes and mombas and things like that being out there. Did you guys ever have that come across snakes and things close to camp where you were at? I know you guys had a
Yes,
snake wrangler there as well.
yes, and yes. We had 3 sightings on Zamba 3.0. And I think that was also another bonding moment for me and Santoni, was
Yep.
she was afraid of the water and I was there for her. We had a
Yes.
sighting of a snake near our camp, like a meter from where our shelter was, and I completely lost my mind because I'm deathly afraid of rats and snakes.
Yep.
So that was the other reason why I never went looking for idols. I would look, but I was so scared. I was terrified of finding a snake that I didn't ever look hard enough, because I was like, nah, screw this shit. I'm not gonna see a snake here. No thanks. And then when I actually came face to face with one, I actually burst out crying, and I had a bit of a panic attack. And Santoni was so sweet, and she was like, because she wasn't afraid of snakes again. And she was like, don't worry, Wardah, it's fine. The snake wrangler's here. It's okay. You'll get through this. And yeah, and subsequent to that, we saw 2 more. But the snake wrangler is incredible. They're there within seconds, within minutes. They're right there, and the snake gets taken away, and it's all good. And thankfully, the snakes that we saw weren't like the truly deadly ones. So even if, heaven forbid, one of us did get bitten or anything like that, we would have been able to get help in time, because our support, the medical staff are like right there. They're quick. They can give a quick response, in other words. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you on the snake story. Like, I mean, I moved to a country that doesn't have any snakes. There's no snakes in New Zealand, so
That is
it'd be
amazing. I need to move to New Zealand.
you're welcome. You just let me know whenever you're coming this way. You just let me know. I'll sort you out. But there's no snakes in New Zealand, and I believe in the islands where they played previously in Fiji and Samoa, there's no snakes there either. So very rare. There's very rare sightings of snakes that sometimes makes its way around the coast of Samoa or Fiji, which I've been to both of those islands. Beautiful islands to be at as well. And obviously this season you guys didn't get to go to an exotic location like that, but seeing a place there in South Africa like the Wild Coast, which probably wasn't familiar to a lot of you as well, it's such a great backdrop to the season. It's been pretty beautiful to notice the backdrop and it being a bit different from the island locations that we're used to. But I take my hat off to you for being out there with the snakes and all of that. I probably would still brave it and go look for idols, but I would also be very, very scared of doing it. The current season for Australia is an outback, similar issue with very, very poisonous snakes out there. If they're looking and putting their hands in those rocks, I'm always thinking, just put your hand behind the wrong rock at the wrong time. It won't go well for you.
Yeah, and I might be biased, and this might be the South African Australian rivalry coming out. It continues.
Yeah.
I do feel that our location, we're very spoiled for choice here. Yes, the production team chose the Wild Coast, but I'm pretty sure there's like a few other places around South Africa that could have just as easily been chosen and would have given as a beautiful backdrop. I think
100%.
we're very lucky to live where we are, to have this backdrop for our season, because Australian Survivor is bringing us the sauce, they're bringing us all the tea, but in terms of visuals, it doesn't compare to our one. I'm sorry, I just don't think so.
I do agree. I think that we've just got such beautiful locations, and depending on where you go in the country, you could have the deserty background, or you could have green and lush forests like we had in the Wild Coast. There's so much different areas in South Africa you can go to, and it's been a brilliant season to watch. It's been brilliant watching you on this season as well. What's next for you, Wardah? What are you doing next? I know you're into your yoga and your online fitness training and things like that. Do you want to do a bit of a shout out and let people know where they can follow you and get some advice if they're looking for it online? And also, do you accept memberships from people around the world? Because we've got quite a lot of people that watch from New Zealand, from Australia, and our majority of our listeners are actually from the US.
Oh, cool. Yes, I'm a personal trainer and yoga teacher, so I offer one-on-one yoga sessions. I'm in the process of building my own app. So that'll be running in the next couple of, I think, month or two. I've just been very distracted with Survivor. So it's good. It's maybe coming to an end so I can focus on my work. And then I have an essential oils company called Cocoon Essential Oils, where it's all locally produced from the local farms here in Cape Town, in South Africa. And it's my range of products. It's all on my Instagram. They should just go follow my Instagram at Wardah FabuFit, which is the name of my fitness company, FabuFit Yoga and Movement. And and they can get everything there. I'm pretty active on my page. And they can just keep up with me, and I'd love to connect with anyone who wants to connect with me.
100%. I've noticed that you do a lot of like cooking or morning routines of what you're doing in your day-to-day routine as well. Are you thinking of going in that direction since you were the cook out on the island? I clearly know you must have some sort of a passion for that as well.
Yes, I am actually looking into that as well. Watch the space. I am working on something, cooking up something, excuse the pun. But I am a one woman show, so it's a lot to juggle multiple businesses, multiple jobs, because I also group train at group instruct at different gyms and different fitness concepts. I do that as well. So a lot happening, but I definitely am going to explore that cooking element of myself as well and show a little bit more of that going forward. But thank you, Chris, for this.
Yeah, no issues. And I hope to stay in touch, and at some point, hopefully in the future, we'll talk again. I know you'll want some space and to declutter from Survivor after all this is done, but I'd love to have you on the show in the future, potentially where you can help critique and give insights on other players that play the game in the future, or for any of the other seasons that you follow as well.
I would love that. No, that will be amazing. I would love to do that. I think that getting former players on or former castaways on to critique is always so good, because they give you an insight that a super fan will never be able to give you, because they've never been on the island. They've never experienced what it's like. Because it's
100%.
like watching endless seasons of a medical, like watching Grey's Anatomy, and the good doctor doesn't make me a doctor. Doesn't mean I can do a tracheotomy. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
So it's like, as much Survivor as you watch, that's great. You do give great insight, but to get it from somebody who actually was there, you can't buy that. You just can't buy that.
100% agree with you, and it's why we've loved having previous castaways on for this season on the show as well. And I look at it this way: it's so much easier to be an armchair critic than to actually be out there playing the game. So it would be a lot more fun for you if you're watching a season that you actually didn't participate in, because you can sit on the side as well, and critique it. But
also at the same time, like I was talking to, I fangirled a little bit. I'm just gonna say, I was like talking to George from Bankstown today.
Oh yes, yeah.
And you find that you're also a lot more sympathetic, and you're not so quick to be harsh with people and go like, oh, why did they do that? That's so stupid. Because like, okay, wait, there's probably more to that we're not seeing. Let me ask this a little differently, or let me just be a little bit more kind about this, because you just don't see everything. It's impossible.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I always try to be as open-minded as possible when I do these things as well, where I say, we're watching an edited show. I can only critique what I see in the edit. I can't critique what I didn't see. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's hard, even for the podcasters, because they have to talk about something, right? But we know that we're sort of basing our opinions off what we're seeing on a show that's edited, and in some degree you've got to see the story of the person who's going to ultimately win the game. You can't see the story of every single person, sadly, so you do miss out on a lot of that. But once again, Wardah, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today, and I look forward to connecting and talking to you in the future when you've had some time to declutter and enjoy the rest of the season.
Thanks so much for having me, Chris. It was a lot of fun. I love talking about the game. This is an incredible season of Survivor South Africa, even if I do so myself.
Yes.
The production team, Mnet, Afrikaans have done an exceptional job in casting all of us and just telling our story. I think yeah, I'm really happy of the way I was portrayed. I think it
That's
was very
great.
true to who I was. And I've got no complaints. I don't know about anyone else, but for me personally, I'm very happy.
That's good to hear. Well, I look forward to talking to you in the future again, and all the best with the rest of the interviews today.
Thank you so much, Chris. Cheers.
See ya. Bye.